And we back. So anyway, back to what I was doing. I had to rearrange some things, change up the scenery and such. Um, so anyway, um, yeah, the other day I did a live stream with a prayer, and basically I, you know, said a prayer of thanks for those who support and uplift and put with like positive reinforcement and like versus people who aren't. And so in me doing that, I wanted to challenge myself to pray for people who may be adversaries or people who like try to give you a hard time and all these things. Because chances are people who are older need the prayer the most. People are taking the time and energy to try to interfere with you elevating your life in any capacity. Chances are they need some prayer. Chances are, you know, they need some help or, character development and such, right? So, um, so yeah, that's what I said my prayer for. And so, it comes with its challenges. Um, being that I'm in a public space right now, so of course, people gonna try to get in the camera, dancing all in the video. You know, what Suge Knight say? But anyway, uh, anyway, um, I just wanted to say that because I wanted to be intentional about like clearing out negative vibes in my space, as it pertains to like just praying for certain battles and people in my life. And so with that said, I think it's one thing to be a positive person and say the positive things, but it's another thing to put it to action. And so like like I can speak to all the things just like wanting to be a good person, wanting to look out for people, wanting to create safe spaces and be a safe space for other people and uplift folks and all those things, right? And then it's another thing to actively want those things for the people who are actively trying to like deter you from it, right? So say there's people whose like intentions are not so good for whatever reason. And a lot of times the reasons be shenanigans or whatever, but to still wish good for those people. And I think it's important to say to not do so in a way where you're being a pushover, right? Where you just let anybody treat you any kind of way. That's not what I mean. I mean doing so in a way where it's like, of course, you rise to the occasion and speak up and speak out against things that are detrimental to like women and children or just like anybody's well-being. And speaking up and speaking out against those things, but doing so in a way where, you know, you can still have love. You can still have love for the people who may be interfering with that, or maybe not love. Love might be a little too strong. Maybe compassion. That's a better word. Maybe if you had like compassion for the people who make you try to make you feel a certain way or whatever the case may be, and pray for their well-being, pray for their healing, pray for them to come to the light, pray for them to reach the truth of their way, right? And of course, if people try it in the meantime, then of course you have a right, I feel, to like fight back and make it a point to say, I don't want to tolerate this. I deserve better than this, and no. So, and that's something I've been working on. It's like setting those boundaries and just like building the things that I desire and would want from society myself. So yeah, um, that's kind of what I was like up to the other day. and you know, I don't know. It kind of put me in a space earlier today. I was having like a mini rant out of frustration of just like feeling discrimination from a group that may have historically been discriminated. Okay, it's not even a negative. Like you gotta relax. I was vaguely speaking on it. Sorry, my technical is doing shenanigans. Anyway, yeah, I was speaking on a situation dealing with discrimination and, feeling like sometimes people who may have historically been discriminated against try to discriminate against others. And just like how much of a oxymoron that is and how unfair it is. But whatever. It kind of reminds me of like the concept in Inception of like a dream within a dream, right? It's like you experience one thing and then you kind of put somebody else through that experience. I mean, maybe not the best analogy, but I don't know. That movie's been resonating a lot with me lately. And anybody who knows me and like my um love for film knows that Christopher Nolan's like one of my favorite directors. So there's that. But anyway, yeah, I just feel like um, gratefully at a point in my life where I don't spend as nearly as much time like judging and like critiquing and get being down on myself like I used to be. Like, I'm grateful that my self esteem and my confidence is what it is right now. Like, yeah, I mean, and plus, like, I feel like I look nice tonight. Like, I got a little dressed or whatever, and I got my jewelry and earrings. I got a new um necklace and such. And yeah, yeah, I'm good. Um, so um, so yeah, what was I saying? Just balancing all the things, right? Anyway, okay, yeah. So I was looking, decent, and so I'm like, all right, cool. Um, I went to the conference. Yeah, not too much, not too much on me. Um, but basically, you know, at one point, I used to be like discouraged and like down about just like how I show up in the world and what people think about me and all these things. And it's like, once you get to a point where it's like you can't satisfy people, because the very people that you worry about having an opinion on you probably don't even like themselves or maybe aren't even all that confident in themselves. I feel like it just gives you a layer of like freedom. And for me, I'm just like I can't stress about how other people feel about me or what other people's opinions are. And really, I'd rather just pay attention to the people who show up for me and people who like me and who get my personality. They get my jokes. They get my sense of humor. They get my activism. They get it, And I don't have to worry about trying to like explain myself to people. People just understand. And it's not like the whole like theatrical charade of like, oh, can we put up this illusion and this facade of what reality is, because we know this person isn't confident in themselves, so we can like say subtle things to try to like chip away at their confidence, like that. That shit just does not work on me. I've worked too hard on building up my belief in myself and just the faith for me and my journey to let other people's perspective or other people's opinions like interfere with what I know to be true about me. Because if you don't like, if you're not certain about who you are, you'll believe anything that anybody says about you, whether it's good or bad. And something that I remember Robert De Niro saying in one of those like Hollywood, yeah, somebody pulls out of my house. But something that I remember Robert De Niro saying during one of those like Hollywood Report videos or whatever, um, he was saying, be indifferent to like people's opinions or perspectives. Whether people are hyping you up and gassing you up, or if they're trying to tear you down or whatever the case may be, like be indifferent to it because if people can inflate your ego, then and they can, even if they're complimenting you, then they can control your emotions to make you feel good, and they can have just as much control to make you feel bad once they start critiquing you. So with the negative, it's like, all right, whatever, that's people's opinion. And then with the positive, it's like, all right, receive it, but don't let it define you. But not because you needed somebody else's validation, but because you can validate yourself. And like I know I'm a kind person. I know I'm a beautiful person. I know I'm smart. I know I'm uplifting. I know I'm funny. I know I have a good character. I know I stand for something. I know these things about myself. And if somebody else happens to compliment me on those things, I'm grateful for that. But I didn't need your compliment in order to be certain about who I am. And that's essentially what that's about. And it's not in a way where it's like you're not grateful for other people's like compliments or like a positive word, but it's more so that you're not reliant on other people needing to say these things to you. You just already know it, and you're already certain about who you are. You're already certain about your character. You're already certain about your dignity and where you stand in the world and what you represent and what you stand for and what you fight for. It's already certain. And you don't have to worry about other people's like, oh, she's such a good person, or oh, she's like a terrible person, whatever. Because everybody's perspective of you is going to be different one way or another. Like depending on if somebody's your friend or if they're your coworker, maybe both, or maybe neither. And you're dealing with people who, will formulate their opinions and their ideologies about you, and that's okay. But you don't let it define you though. Because some people may have constructive criticism, and it can help better you. Or you can be very certain of who you are, and and make a decision on like, okay, this is a part of my life I want to explore. This isn't. These are the boundaries that I'm going to set. Um, and this is how I want to move forward in life. This is what life means to me, and having all the answers of that, but having all those answers within yourself, and not needing like somebody outside of yourself to say, hey, you did a good job. And even if they do like receive it with love, but not in a way where it's like you're hanging on that compliment or hanging on somebody else's approval to make you feel like you're worthy. Like you should just already feel worthy to be yourself. You should already just feel worthy to like exist because we do. We are worthy of existence. So that was a bit of a tangent, but ultimately points were made, and yeah, you know, like receive the positive, receive the compliments, receive the love, receive the positivity, but at the same time, don't let it define you. Because if that's the case, then people's negativity could define you too. And whether it's true or not is really none of their concern. And it's none of your concern either, unless it's like something that's like a detriment to your well being. But even still, like, separating yourself from other people's words and other people's actions and other people's opinions, and really just taking the time to have your own opinion and have your own thoughts and your own affirmations and messages that you want to say to yourself, which is something that I'm actively learning in real time, right? Because I mean, of course, sometimes you need help with certain things, but it's another thing where it's like, all right, you really have your own, you have the answers within you. You just need to tap in and really like, you know, explore and learn and build and evolve in that space, and that's like kind of where I'm at right now. So yeah, it's an interesting space to be in this world. However, it's just a matter of the truth. to be in a state of, which here we go with the shenanigans. But people taking the time and energy to, like, anyway. Um, so yeah. And again, reiterating my point. Of course, there are gonna be moments and times where, like, people try to undermine you or discredit you or attack you in one way or another. But again, like, trust yourself and, like, trust your own perspective about what you feel is right and wrong, and what feels right to your gut versus what you feel other people might want you to, you know, be. So yeah. So that. That. Who is that? 15. I have an alarm for like every few minutes or so, just because sometimes I work late, like now, and me working late, I what's the name? And me working late, I think it's important to set the tone for what you want your life to be versus where other people want to plug into your reality. Because they'll do that, unfortunately. But regardless, you're the creator of your world, you're the creator of your life. And, I'm slowly, well, I'll say quickly and surely, not only just learning that, but like beginning to like be able to tap in and master it. That's the ultimate. So pray for me and pray that we stay focused and stay clear and cognizant of the intention and the plan and the mission, really. Speaking of mission, so for those who don't know, I do have an online clothing brand. I may have mentioned it in the last video or maybe like the last two videos. And it's it is interesting to say the least. And like, and so I really got into like ChatGPT. Um what is this? Anyway. And so I was using that as a means to like help out with my like store or whatever. Because I have an online clothing brand called Amore Over So, and it is creating pieces intentionally and authentically, with the means of like returning payment. Not payment, sorry. My mind wandered. Anyway, all right. Anyway, um, so yeah, I created this online brand. Um, this is like I don't know how many online stores I've created this far, but this time around I'm doing it a little bit differently because I am marketing it as well as like when I'm out and about selling my CDs. I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I have a clothing line. Now today I was looking a little bit earlier, but I'm like, okay, I remind myself like, yes, make sure you're pushing the brand too. And so, I rebuke these yawns and all the shenanigans that come with it. Um, but yeah, it's like cooler here, and I'm so over it. But yeah. But anyway, much love to y'all. Um, I am going to be right back. We're gonna do a part three to this, and in part three, we're really gonna get into like the nitty gritty of the clothing brand because there were certain things that I wanted to share about that anyway. Just about like the whole like ideology behind it and the intention and the mission statement and all these things. So it's kind of been evolving, and an initial idea that I had for like a visual, um, I still want to commit to that idea, and I feel like Tuesday. So Yeah, but I need to like warm up my body because it's fucking cold. Um, so yeah, I'll be right back.